Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast of Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who, much like Julio Jones, we might not have seen too much recently, but I'm hoping we get the best of his abilities. Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm back. I'm feeling, I guess you could say refreshed a little bit, but getting back to the grind here now and ready to hit the ground running as we're getting ready for football season.
Yeah, Kyle, it's been too long.
It's been too long. It's been a couple weeks here, so now we're back. And it really starts to feel like football season now. We got guys showing up to training camp. Aaron Rodgers looks like Nick Cage. I'm not really sure why. Russell Wilson's wearing his own jersey to training camp today, so that's fun. Yeah, so good stuff going around here.
Yeah, I love the Russell Wilson move. That's like when you're in when you see a player in a commercial who happens like to wear their own jersey at the supermarket. That's what Russell Wilson probably does. I bet if you saw him at the supermarket, he'd be wearing his own jersey.
I wouldn't be surprised, or like a shirt with his name on it or something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? I would. If I was a quarterback, yeah, I'd always be wearing my own jersey.
Yeah, I guess so. That's fair. Probably good to pick up chicks.
Yeah, I guess that's what opportunity there. I think Russell Wilson's all right in that category. Kyle, how was your trip?
It was good. So went to Hawaii. Did a little bit of hiking. Did a little bit of laying on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
That was basically the extent of my trip, but it was a blast.
Good. Yeah,
I did shark cage diving. That was cool.
Yeah, that's absolutely terrifying to me. I think I'd rather jump out of a plane without a parachute than do shark cage diving.
They don't even care that you're there. Honestly, I mean,
that's the one thing that like I'm not a shark guy. Sharks I think are absolutely terrifying.
I don't know. They probably look at me and just say, "Oh, that's light work. I'm not worried about it."
I guess so. Yeah, maybe that's how it worked. All right, enough chit chat, Kyle. We have serious business to talk about here. A lot of stuff has happened in the football world. We are going to be continuing our previews of every division, starting with the NFC West, which I think is consistently one of the most entertaining divisions to talk about.
Yeah, I think that this is still a really good division. I think this is something that a couple of the teams I think had lower expectations this season, but overall, like these are still two really good. These are still, I would say, at least three really good teams. Two teams that made the NFC Championship last year played in this division. Just a lot of stuff to like here. Your Super Bowl champion, obviously, is in this division as well. Really strong division, top to bottom, I think. I think there's players that are really good on each of these teams. I have it as the third best division in football still. And that was, I think it was one last year, and that's just, it was, high expectations. They're a little lower now, and I still think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, three playoff teams from a year ago, the two teams that played in the NFC Championship game from a year ago, as you mentioned, the champions, and then there's the Seattle Seahawks. But, we got four interesting teams, certainly, to talk about. Always interesting. We wanted to get into it. Why don't you set up how we do this for the people that maybe have forgotten after this long layoff?
Yeah, so like we were saying, basically what's going to happen is I'm going to go through and rank the teams from 4 to 1. And I'm going to rank the teams just off of my personal feelings, how I feel about the season. I think there will be less people coming back at me for Seahawks being fourth in the division this season. And then we're going to compare it to Jackson's note. He breaks this down. He has, gradings and tiers for every position group based on all the players in these teams, how that works out. And we're going to grade each of these teams and see how it compares to where I have them ranked and talk about each team.
Yeah, Kyle, I have breaking Patriots news that has just broke.
Breaking Patriots news. What is it?
Yes, Devon Godshaw signed a 2-year, $20.8 million extension with the New England Patriots. There you go.
Oh, well, he's a good player, so it makes sense. I kind of figured they had to move around some money, I think, this offseason anyway, so makes sense. There we go.
All right. Well, if any more breaking news happens, we will report on it. I figured with the Patriots guy, I'll say that here. Let's get into the list. Starting off with, first, you have to. So you already said third highest ranked division. Let's get into the list. Who do you have fourth here, and why is it the Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, so this is no surprise. It's the Seattle Seahawks. Listen, if you're going to lose a fringe tier 1 quarterback, maybe high end tier 2. This is, you're going to be docked a little bit, I think, overall. And the rest of this team, I don't love a lot of it. I don't love a lot of this team. I think,
Hmm.
this offensive line is at best speculative projection is okay. And that's just if everything works out for this offensive line, which is, bold to say. Good pass catchers. That's probably the best part of this team. But you're looking through this. This is a defense that I've hated, and it feels like it gets worse every year. I feel like every year,
Hmm.
basically, since that Super Bowl season, it's like this defense is a little shittier. Um,
Yeah.
and now it's to the point where, you know what? Last year they were stopping the run. I'm not really convinced they're going to stop the run again this season like they did. And I think they have good individual players in their secondary, but it still feels like they can't guard people. And a lot of that too has to do with their linebackers' inability to guard. This team's been kind of gutted. I think this is a rebuilding project. And with a quarterback like Drew Lock at the helm, I think this is a potential number one pick team. So I got the Seahawks fourth.
Yeah. I also have them at fourth. It's kind of the obvious take. And, we talk about the two most important people on a football team are the head coach and the quarterback. Pete Carroll ranked 31st in my head coach rankings. Geno Smith / Drew Lock, that tandem ranked 32nd in football. So right off the bat, you're starting from, have some difficulties just starting out.
Yeah, and we got some pushback on Pete Carroll in his ranking.
Hmm.
He did win a Super Bowl. It's been 9 years now, 9 years since he won a Super Bowl. Actually, by the next Super Bowl, he'll be a decade removed from it, basically. So
Uh-huh.
he's coming up on a decade removed from the Super Bowl. He, I don't think he's changed anything in 10 years. I don't think he's
Right.
changed any of his core philosophies or beliefs about the game. And if you could probably take the best offense in 2013, it might be the worst offense in 2022. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that might be a fair assumption, honestly. That's how
Hmm.
different the game is, but he's still living in 2013 and trying to win a Super Bowl in 2013. I think it's an impossible way to win. I think we're completely justified on this Carroll thing right now until he proves he's willing to change, which I don't think he is at this point of his illustrious career. And it stinks that it's going to kind of peter out like this, but I just have no faith in him being able to adjust.
Listen, it is not a indictment on who Pete Carroll is as a career football coach. Pete Carroll has done incredible things for the Seattle Seahawks over his career. It's just we feel like the game has passed him by.
Yeah, I think it has too. I was surprised he even came back. I'm surprised they wanted him back. I'm surprised he came back. I don't know
Hmm.
why he would, as the oldest coach in the NFL, you know, signed off on this rebuild, and he's basically getting back into that now. I don't know. It's an interesting situation. I wonder how much longer he's actually going to be around with this program.
Yeah. As Parwin Kamel says in the, I think it's an I. Sorry for butchering your name, but as the commenter says, best offense in 2013 was the 2013 Broncos. Yeah, I think that team would probably still do all right this year. I think that's kind of an exception.
Yeah, sure, they might be
Hmm.
okay, but I mean,
He
they
picked a
wouldn't
bad
be.
year for an example.
Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
would they be a top five offense, you think, this year? If you just plucked that team and dropped it into this season?
Maybe, but again, we're talking about one of the most historic, statistically the most historic offense of all time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Hmm.
Um, but I still think my point stands that it's a different game. I think
No, it does. It's
Yeah,
just kind of funny how that worked out.
yeah, exactly. So let's get into the Seahawks now. So like you said, tier 5 coach, tier 5 quarterback. How you viewing the skill position guys?
Yeah, skill position's all right. You have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. We all know what they can do. Don't love their other options. Tight ends, maybe Noah Fant will take a step forward. You also do have Will Dissly here. But for the third wide receiver, is it Freddie Swain, who was Pro Football Focus's last graded eligible wide receiver last year? Is it Marquise Goodwin, who, again, is a fine depth player, but I don't love their depth. And so because of that, they're tier 2 wide receiving core. But still, Metcalf and Lockett, we know what they can do. And for the halfbacks, like Rashad Penny and what he did last year, he was awesome last year. Is that who he is? Was it a fluke? Well, remains to be seen. They also drafted Kenneth Walker, who might be the best pure rusher in the draft class. So that 1-2 combo, again, hated a Kenneth Walker pick, but he will help out their running back room. So tier 2 running back room, tier 2 wide receiving core.
Yeah, and I think I'm a little more bullish on the pass catchers because I like Fan a lot. I just need him to stay on the field. I think Will Dissly's also a pretty high end number 2 tight end, and I think guys like Walker and DJ Dallas are both guys who can catch the ball out of the backfield. So it's not like you don't have your prototypical slot receiver as that third guy, but I think there's guys you could patch together to make the third person, and I think Fant's actually got a ton of upside still. Um, The running backs is the most interesting thing to me with this team, though. I mean, Metcalf and Lockett are great. They're they might be the only reason people actually watch this team.
Hmm.
But with this running backs, I think it's okay to be excited. I'm excited to watch both of those guys play. I'm excited to watch Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker play. I think they're
Hmm.
both going to be good running backs. I just hate the strategy. The strategy and asset management behind it is kind of dumb.
Right.
Because I mean, the strategy says if you don't have an elite running back, get two running backs. That's kind of the go-to move in the NFL. But
Hmm.
it makes sense to get two running backs when you're getting two running backs in the fifth round of a draft.
Right.
You're using now a first and second round pick on two running backs that are going to kind of platoon, and neither are elite, but I think both are going to be really good. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that works out.
Well, yeah, there's so many good running backs in the league.
Yeah.
Like some of the tier 5 running back rooms that like I mentioned the Lions, they were tier 5. They had DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Like that's a fine running back room, but there's just so many good running back rooms. That's kind of the issue here with that. Uh, we can move on to the offensive line to round out the offense with I think the tackles, you have two rookies, so there's always a question mark there who I'm assuming will start, but there's a chance that it could work out because I really like what Charles Cross can do. He was the 9th overall pick. Abraham Lucas has really good pass blocking advanced statistics. He's a third rounder, so he could potentially do well on top of it. Don't love their interior. Now, Austin Blythe has been very good for the Chiefs when he's healthy. He's the center, but will he be healthy? He is coming off an injury. But, I think that I like him. It's really the guards that are my question with Damian Lewis and Gabe Jackson, neither really to write home about. So it's a tier 4 offensive line for me because you're relying on rookies, and I don't love everyone altogether. But at the same time, if Cross and Lucas can work out, at least could have 3 good offensive linemen, and you could build something together. So that's a tier 4 offense for me, which puts their total offense to 25th in football among offenses.
Uh, yeah, I think I agree with that. It's not going to be pretty, even with and it's crazy to think about a team with arguably the best 1-2 receiver combo in the league being the 24th ranked offense, and that just tells you the rest of this talent on this team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little more concerned about this offensive line for you. I like Cross. I wasn't crazy about Lucas as a mid round pick, but we'll see. All this kind of like we'll see how it goes as he goes into the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
The interior, I think, is a major problem. And you're going into a Division Two with you're playing 2 games against J.J. Watt and 2 games against Aaron Donald on the interior of the defensive lines.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really where you want your weak spot to be? I mean, that sounds like it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
don't forget Eric Armstead as well for San
yeah,
Francisco.
that's
Mm-hmm.
true.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, I think they're in a rough spot. I think that I think it's going to be a bad offense. I think it's going to be a miserable offense, and but I mean, so I guess the thing is this team's probably going to run the football a lot, right? This is kind of what they wanted to do. The whole
Mm-hmm.
argument was let Russ cook. Russ isn't there anymore, so they can kind of just do what they want on offense, which is probably why they had these 2 running backs. They're going to get a ton of carries, I think, and that's what try and pound the ball and win the time of possession battle.
Yeah, listen, I'm not a huge fantasy football guy. I don't know how this stuff is going to work, but it feels like getting Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker could be a good move.
Yeah, it might be a nice tandem there for sure. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
Moving on to their defense, it somehow gets worse. We're starting off with the coverage with, I mean, listen, it seems like every year the Seahawks are like, oh, hey, we found this like underrated gem. Let's let him go. I just looks like maybe they'll do it again. I don't know, but so safeties. I like Quandre Diggs, and I still like Jamal Adams. Like I know that I don't think he's getting used correctly in Seattle, so that's kind of the issue. But I still think he can play. I still like his skill set. They also have Ryan Neal in there for the safeties. But the corners are there's just some questions here. I like Sidney Jones. I do. But you have, is it the 4th round pick Trey Brown from a year ago who looked okay in his 250 snaps? Is it Justin Coleman, who looks like he should just be depth from what we've seen from him? You drafted a couple of guys in the mid rounds. Kobe Bryant with a C, not with a K. Kobe Bryant in the 4th round, this most previous draft, along with Tariq Woolen in the 5th round of this most previous draft. So it's like listen, I think Kobe Bryant, there's some reason to believe he might fit this system really well, but you're still relying on a 4th round rookie probably to get significant playing time here. So it's a tier 5 coverage unit. Coverage is a weak link position, and there's some concerns here. I'm also not crazy about I like Jordan Brooks. I'm not crazy about their other linebacker situation. Maybe if they had Bobby Wagner, I'd feel better about them. Tier 5 coverage for me.
Yeah. I like Diggs. The rest of this is kind of like we'll see. I could see all these. I could, like Burns graded out pretty well the last time he played, and Jones has graded out fine. But like, would I be shocked if like you said, coverage kind of varies year to year sometimes. Would I be shocked if those two are bad next season? No, I wouldn't be shocked. I think Diggs is good, but he's kind of on an island back there in what they run defensively, playing that deep safety role. And then, like you said, Adams. I mean, it is awkward how he fits onto this team. I think, can we even like grade him as a coverage guy at this point? Like
Right.
they have him on the line of scrimmage, it feels like more than he's in the secondary. I think the scheme fails a lot of these guys more so than their individual talents, and they really need some young guys to step up, but I don't see it happening this season.
Yeah, you can talk yourself into it if you're a diehard Seahawks fan, but it seems unlikely. And then for the rest of the defense, the run defense is probably the bright spot of this defense, but it's still not great. I have it at tier 3 because, I like the interior enough. I like Puna Ford. I like Al Woods. I like Shelby Harris a lot. Quentin Jefferson can play. So like you have guys who can stuff the run from the inside. Not crazy about, again, linebackers. I like Jordan Brooks for what he is. Is it Cody Barton going to be the other guy? I'm not super excited about that. So that's an issue, along with Uchenna Nwosu from the Chargers. I think he's good. He's a fine edge rusher. But then it's like, okay, is Boye Mafe, the second round pick, going to be the guy who comes in and has to get significant playing time, or are we relying on Darrell Taylor to get significant playing time? Are we going to have Tyreek Smith, a 5th round pick from 2022? So this past year, like he's probably going to get significant playing time, it seems like, at the edge rush position. So it's tier 3 run defense because I do like their interior defensive line, but tier 5 pass rush for me.
Yeah, and it's kind of the cardinal sin for this team that they don't really have cover guys, and they don't have guys to get after the quarterback. Now, not every team's going to burn them, but like you go through their schedule, I mean, they're not going to do well against Los Angeles with this team they got right now. They're not going to do well against, week 1 against Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. I think that's going to be a struggle. I think, Arizona in week 9 with DeAndre Hopkins back is going to be a struggle. They play Brady in Tampa. They play the Raiders. They play, Kansas City. These are all teams I think that they're just going to – I don't see how they get stops. And then not to mention that unless Metcalf just finds a way to get open every play, I don't see how they score enough points to keep up with a lot of teams either. I mean – I don't know. This feels like a number 1 pick team to me, right?
They're in the conversation, certainly. I have them, so just to round out the defense, their team for me, I have their defense at tied for 29th. Actually tied with another team on this list for 29th. We'll get into them in a second. 28th overall team in my rankings, 13th in the NFC. So Jason Myers, tier 4 kicker for whatever that's worth. He's had some good years. Maybe he can be better. Wasn't great last year. And again, kickers are weird. Small sample size, whatever. So as a whole, yeah, they feel like a team that could be competing for the number 1 overall pick. And maybe there's some intentional, that's not entirely unintentional. There's good quarterbacks on the, available. Maybe the logic is, hey, let's take a step back. Russell Wilson's good enough to get us to the playoffs, but he's not good enough to will us to a Super Bowl. I also realized, forgot to put the banner up. So sorry for anyone looking for the Seahawks. Just putting it up now. So we started with the Seahawks, as you probably guessed. So I don't think there's any confusion about that. But yeah. Anyways, but yeah, number 1 overall pick seems like they'll be in contention for it.
Yeah, could you imagine them drafting Will Levis and him walking into a local Starbucks with the bottle of mayo? That'll be interesting. No.
Yeah, what is that? Mayo's one of those weird things, though, where it's like, I was like, I don't know, 25 when I first saw someone mix mayo and ketchup to use for French fries, which I guess maybe that's like a Midwest thing. I don't know. But apparently that's a thing.
I like just mayo and fries straight up, but I don't put I like it with fries and I like it on a sandwich. I feel like anything else, you're just fooling yourself here.
But then that broke like mayo and fries like breaks my brain because I've never, for the most part of my life, I never saw that. So now I'm like, maybe mayo is just good with everything. I don't know.
No, it's definitely not good with everything. Trust me. I'm not putting it in my coffee anytime soon. So yeah, I mean, it's just a bold strategy. But overall, yeah, I don't know. I think I do think I haven't done my full like season, go through the records. I usually pick every game, see how the
Mhm.
records play out. I think this might end up, just that eyeballing it. This might end up right up there with the worst team in football, which, like you said, a lot of good quarterbacks coming out. So there's an opportunity there to get a guy and kind of start your, kickstart your rebuild that way. But it's a lot more than quarterback for me right now, man. This is, I mean,
Yeah.
we just went through that defense. It might need 7 new starters by next season to be
Uh-huh.
like respectable. And then the offense, if the offensive tackles are good, I think you feel good about this year because you'll be able to run the ball. You have pass catchers. You'll have good offensive tackles. You improve that offense interior, and then you're good to go. But if one of those guys don't work out, then you're all of a sudden looking for maybe 4 new offensive linemen, plus trying to figure out that quarterback spot, which is the biggest thing.
Yeah, they've got some work to do. Maybe if only they could get like I don't know, a fridge future Hall of Fame quarterback on their roster, that would help them a lot.
Yeah, exactly. One who's maybe won a Super Bowl, been there before, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that would be help. But yeah, I mean, those guys just don't come available like via a trade or anything. Like you have to draft those guys.
Yeah, I mean, when you can get your hands on Drew Lock, you can't really say no.
Right, right, exactly. Uh, okay. Uh, thank God we're done with them. 3 teams now. Where are you going with number 3 in this division?
I'm gonna stick with the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona
Hmm.
Cardinals got off to a hot start. There was a lot of expectations last year that maybe this team finally makes a leap. And you know what? There's still a lot of talent on this team to be excited about. He's gonna miss the first 8 games of the season, but DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best in the game.
Hmm.
Um, Kyler might have the best highlight tape of any quarterback in the league, and on this
Certainly.
right,
Hmm.
I mean, if he could stay healthy and stay on the field, it wouldn't have been crazy to say at some points last season that he'd have an MVP in his arsenal. So he's right up there in the conversation. The issue with me is that this team, uh, I thought they rebuilt their offensive line nicely last season, but I was wrong on that. This offensive line's weak. It's bad
Yeah.
this team's just bad in the trenches right now. They lost
Yeah.
Chandler Jones. I'm
Hmm.
concerned about the pass rushing overall. And for a team that's gone 2 first-round picks now on linebackers, they don't have good linebackers either. So I think
Hmm.
this defense is really going to struggle. I think this offensive line is going to struggle to block, which is not a good sign when your quarterback has an injury history. And I'm curious to see how this team looks after week 8. Because, yes, Hopkins makes a huge difference to their offense and it looks a lot better. But is there even a chance for them to make up ground by that time when they got to play Kansas City, at Las Vegas, home to the Rams, Philadelphia week 5, Minnesota week 8 on the road? Those aren't easy games to win. Is this a point where this team might be 2-6 after week 8 and then asking for Hopkins to come back and fix all of their problems? I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I have them third as well. I really like parts of this team, I think is what I'll
Mhm.
say. There's parts of this team that are very fun. Also, love their uniforms. Big fan of the Cardinals uniforms. I don't know why. It works for me. Every now and then I feel like I needed to mention a uniform. Great uniform. We have to say, we're talking about the 2 most important people in the organization, Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury. There was a point last year where Kyler Murray was going to win MVP and Cliff Kingsbury was going to win Coach of the Year. That did not happen. They both, Kyler got hurt and it really fell off the rails once Kyler got back. Not even when he was hurt, but once he got back, the things really fell off the rails. I have Kyler as a tier 2 quarterback because, listen, like I said, his upside is there. And part of why he was going to win MVP was no other quarterback was really playing that great last year, but he was still really good. And you hope that you can recapture that magic. Cliff Kingsbury did do some nice things in the first half of last year. He's got to figure out how to make the adjustments late in the season. That's something he has to figure out. But the upside is there with these 2 guys.
It definitely is there. We just need to see it consistently. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
issue, like, I think Kyler's right on that fringe tier 2, tier 3. And I think, as the Lamar discourse got really weird this last week, I think he's kind of in that same boat where it's like you love the highs, but you hate the lows. And
Uh-huh.
I just keep going back to that playoff game, man, where he looked overwhelmed. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even, I didn't, that Rams defense was good. It obviously showed itself winning the Super Bowl.
Sure.
But it wasn't like that Rams defense I felt like was playing lights out perfect football in that game. He just missed plays. He missed plays. He made bad, horrible mistakes. And I just think that's a huge problem. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still think, at his best, he's one of the most unstoppable players. But at the same time, like I said, the lows scare me every time I watch him.
Yeah, I'm with you. Again, you got to take the good with the bad. with Kyler, or I guess take the bad with the good with Kyler. You're going to get some bad there, but you just hope the good outweighs the bad. And for the most part, it has so far in his career. The weapons are fascinating. So halfback room, I have as tier 3 with James Conner, who, was really good last year. So we'll see if that continues. Darrell Williams, fine backup. So tier 3 for me. The wide receiving core, I do have as tier 2, which part of that is I'm counting DeAndre Hopkins as healthy because he'll be healthy the second half of the year, or he'll be at least on the field the second half of the year. And so I'm just putting it as tier 2. Kind of, didn't know exactly how to, affect that. But with him healthy, Marquise Brown, I keep saying healthy, with him, on the field, Marquise Brown is number 2. Maybe you'll still get some stuff out of AJ Green, who you got value out of last year. You have Rondell Moore and Andy Isabella in kind of the second round picks that haven't totally worked out yet. Club, although Rondell Moore showed some flashes last year, so we'll see if that continues. And then tight ends, I like Zach Ertz. Once he put on a Cardinals uniform, he played way better. Really like Max Williams, and I like Trey McBride. I had him as my favorite tight end out of the draft. So you have plenty of options, and you have the guy who you can throw to on 3rd and 7, and he'll make a play in Hopkins. So as long as Hopkins is healthy, it's a tier 2 wide receiving room for me.
I think I agree with this. I mean, if Max Williams can get healthy, he had that bad injury last season. Mm-hmm. That's 3 tight ends that I'll trust to kind of go out there and make a catch, like you were saying. There's 3 receivers here. Once Hopkins comes back, that, you know what? I didn't love Marquise Brown. I did not disguise that I did not like Hollywood Brown as a number 1 receiver in Baltimore.
Right. Mm-hmm.
As a number 2, maybe number 3 slot guy, I like him a lot. I like him a lot more in that role. And then not to mention Rondell Moore. That's a lot of speed between those 2 guys just on their own. And then, like you said, once Hopkins comes back, the big thing for me is, like I said, just weathering the storm until he does get back, because there's not a lot of pure possession receivers on this team when he's not on the field. I don't think I don't think Green can carry that load like he has in the past in his career, and I don't think Brown or Moore are those kind of guys. They're kind of speed, get out in the flats, and which is perfect for this Arizona offense that doesn't love to throw past the line of scrimmage all the time. Mm-hmm. But I do think you kind of need that guy who can go get 7-8 yards consistently. Hopkins is that guy, and I don't think they really have it without him.
Yeah, and maybe maybe Trey McBride will be that guy, right? Like maybe it'll be from tight ends that make that work. But I think that's very true. Can't you just see Marquise Brown just being exactly Christian Kirk? Like, couldn't that just easily, like that exact role? The Jaguars will throw $20 million a year at him after this year. Like that just feels like what can happen.
Hey, a lot of good things coming out of camp about Christian Kirk so far.
Oh, really? A lot of good things about the guy they overpaid for coming out of camp. Wouldn't have expected that one.
Hey. Just
that's
saying,
never happened before.
Optimism, man.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, here's the thing too. I wouldn't be surprised if Brown's awesome in this role. If in the second half of the season Brown's really good because Hopkins taking all this attention and he's working with this guy he had a lot of success with in college, I wouldn't be surprised if he's awesome. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how it works out. I think that these first few weeks, I think, are just going to be tough until they get their number 1 guy back. And then as far as the running backs go, I do like Connor. As I said with the previous one with the Seahawks, I really like the 2 running back system when you invest low in both guys. They had this run perfectly last season with Chase Edmonds and James Conner. They didn't really replace James Edmonds the way I would hope so, but at the same time, I still think it should be good enough. And Kyler's basically a running back too.
Right, exactly. I like this comment talking about the the reports that come out after during training camp of the all caps in the best shape of his life. Yeah, that's good. I feel like every training camp I'm showing up in the worst shape of my life consistently, year by year.
It's just slowly going downhill. It's like last year was the worst shape of my life, and now even further into the worst shape of my life. I feel like that's a dig at the the Jack Mac Jones pictures I've been sharing everywhere that I'm excited about.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on. Speaking of digs, you'll be able to find a lot of digs at this offensive line because not very good stuff here for the offensive line. The highlight, I guess, is DJ Humphries, who's like a solid tackle. Kevin Beachum, who has consistently been like an above like a okay tackle. He wasn't great last year, but I'm willing to believe he can be okay. So the tackles are like fine. You then have Justin Pugh, who, again, below average, but not the worst in the world. Will Hernandez, who was, sort of a fringe starter with the Giants. We'll see what he can do. I'm not sure how much I'm expecting 45-year-old Rodney Hudson to still continue to have success here in the NFL. Although, he does some nice things with just the mental aspect of football. So that might not show up in his PFF grade, but that's an added benefit that he brings to a line. But as a whole, 31st rated offensive line in football for me. That's obviously tier 5.
Yeah, it's old. It's old.
Mm-hmm.
I think is this the oldest offensive line in the league? It's got
I
to
don't
be
know.
close at least. But yeah, I mean, like you said, a couple nice players here. I mean, Hudson obviously did not grade out very well last season, and I don't know if he's gonna, if he'll ever be. He's not going to be the same guy ever again. But I wouldn't be surprised if he bounces back a little bit and has a better season. And then I like the left side of this line a little bit more, but I still think it's pretty weak overall.
Yeah. So the offense for me tied for 15th. Not the end of the world, but the offensive line definitely brings it down a little bit. As for the defense, the low light of this defense is the coverage unit, which is bad. This is not a good coverage unit at all, I think. Again, safeties like Budda Baker, like Jalen Thompson, and you have Deontay Thompson as well, who's sort of a 5th rounder who plays like it. But this cornerback room, I don't love. Some people like Marco Wilson. I didn't love what I saw from him as a rookie. He was the 109th rated corner out of 116, according to Pro Football Focus. Again, some people like Byron Murphy. I've never been a Byron Murphy guy. That's just kind of how I've been. And you have like Antonio Hamilton, who probably should just be depth. You have a 7th rounder, Christian Matthew, who you might be relying on to get significant playing time. I keep saying coverage is a weak link position. They have several weak links here. Don't love their cornerback room at all. And it's hard to win with a bad cornerback room. And again, maybe Wilson and Murphy will take steps forward and then they'll look great. And then who knows? Coverage is fluky. You never know what's going to happen. But if I'm predicting what's going to happen, I'm predicting that their coverage is not going to be great. Have it ranked 32nd overall, tier 5 for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really like this safety duo, but you know why the safety duo didn't grade out very well? Because their corners can't cover and their linebackers can't cover in front of them.
Right.
So what's good to have 2 safeties if nobody else is covering the field? That's a problem. That's a real problem, I think. I mean, I don't even know what the best strategy is. They might as well just keep those guys deep and take away touchdowns and just hope the linebackers and corners can come up with the turnover, basically.
Do you go with the Todd Bowles with the jet strategy of just blitz every play because and just hope that you can get there before get the quarterback to make a mistake?
Just to like straight 10-1 defense, you're just gonna go all out.
Sure, yeah, I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's gonna be a problem. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who they're covering, and then there's some good pass offenses on the schedule too, as I talked about. You look at teams like, I mean, I think this team's going to start 0-3. Honestly, they got Kansas City at home, Vegas.
You
on the road.
Really don't like this beginning of the schedule for the Cardinals?
No, Kansas City, Vegas, and Los Angeles. We just talked about this secondary. Who are they stopping on those 3 teams?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they can get one of the Kansas City guys to stop them.
Yeah, I guess Juju Smith-Schuster can like toss them the ball or something in a TikTok.
Yeah, I think they might be able to collectively cover Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a rough look. Yeah, so I think it's going to be a real problem. Like I said, I think they start 0-3 and then they got to right the ship quick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see if that ends up what happened. To round out the defense, you have the 2 first-round linebackers that you mentioned, Isaiah Simmons and Xavier Collins, who Collins showed a couple flashes as a rookie, but hasn't shown much. Isaiah Simmons, kind of the same thing. I just don't think Isaiah Simmons is a linebacker. I think he's a safety. I think that's what I said coming out of the draft. I think he's been used wrong. I think he should be a safety, but they don't need a safety. So that's why they're just in this weird spot now where you kind of have to play him at linebacker. But they're in that pick has not worked out totally at this point. And then for the defensive line, you have JJ Watt, who, as you mentioned, still very good. You hope he can stay healthy because he's still been awesome when he's on the field. And then to round out the interior defensive line with Zach Allen and Leki Fotu, who, they're relying on JJ Watt there, certainly, in that interior. The edge rusher, they just have guys who are should be solid. It's like no one great here, but guys who should be solid. So, Devin Kennard, who's been a consistent, solid player. Marcus Golden should be solid. And then Cameron Thomas and Majai Sanders were both 3rd-round picks this last draft, who I was very high on, especially Cameron Thomas. I think that he has some really exciting advanced analytics. We'll see if that works out. But, tier 3 run defense for me, tier 4 pass rush for me. is how I grade that stuff out. Matt Prater's tier 3. So as a whole, they had a team tied up to Seahawks for the 29th defense overall, which puts them at 7.09 total wins, 9th in the NFC, 23rd in the NFL. I do not have this team even going 500.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair assumption right now. I mean, unless Kyler cuts out all the bad Kyler stuff and plays MVP Kyler, I don't really see a situation where this team is hitting that level. I think they should defend the run really well. I might have this a little higher than tier 3 as a run defense with guys like Rashad Lawrence, with guys like JJ Watt, with maybe these young linebackers in Collins and Simmons getting a little bit better. I think they should be able to defend the run really well. But I mean, so you'll play the Seahawks pretty well. I mean,
right.
Yeah. So
there you go. That's 2 wins.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the NFC West, they usually all just split with each other anyway. So
right.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be, you could defend the run really well, but in 2022, I don't think that's a recipe for a great defense without those corners doing their job too.
Yeah, seems like they could be. I think, what's the way that this team overperforms expectations? It probably is. To me, I think it's if Marco Wilson and Byron Murphy play really well next year. I think if that happens, that's a way this team could be back in the playoffs.
Yeah, and Murphy got off to a strong start last year. So, and a lot of that was turnover based. So obviously that kind of skewed it a little bit. But once those turnovers started going down, he struggled a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, if those corners get better this season, the coverage will look a lot better because those safeties are rock solid at the back. And then it's just kind of weathering the storm on offense. Like I said, they got to get through those first 8 weeks. Maybe it gets reduced down to 6, but we'll see. And then you basically would have to have a strong second half at that point, which the second half of the schedule isn't easy either. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think Kyler has to play at a high level. And I think that at least one of these corners really have to step up.
Yeah, seems likely. Let's move on. So we have 2 teams. Feels like it's probably pretty straightforward, the list here. But why don't you go ahead? Who do you have going finishing second in this division?
I really like this team, man. It feels weird to put them at second in the division, but I like this team. I think they're going in the right direction still. I got the San Francisco 49ers, and I mean, I do like this team a lot. I like basically everything about this roster. There's a couple things. The interior offensive line, I think, might struggle. I think Kinlaw gets better, and their run defense will get a lot better, too, because of it. And they got maybe the best middle linebacker in football, which also helps with that. I think, they never have a star in the secondary, it feels like, anymore, but their secondary always seems good. So I just go through this team, and it's like, okay, I like that. I like that. They're going to be able to run the ball. That's what they do. The big thing for me is why I can't put it number 1. And can't put it as like maybe a Super Bowl contender is I got to see it from Trey Lance. I got to see Trey Lance be that kind of guy. It's just hard to be, until we see it, we're never going to know. So I think, if he looks good, then all of a sudden this team's ceiling gets a lot higher. But right now I still see this team as a good playoff team that can pull off an upset.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have him number 2 as well. So it looks like we agree on all 4 of these because I think that for the 49ers, it's the simple narrative is the correct one here. Kyle Shanahan's awesome. I have him as my 3rd highest rated head coach. I think he's great. The question really is when it comes to the quarterback position. Trey Lance has been announced. He will be the starter. We've barely seen Trey Lance. I had them as tier 4 with Jimmy G at quarterback. Let's keep it at tier 4 just for simplicity's sake there. But I mean, it really kind of does all rely on Trey Lance here.
It really does. And that's a daunting task, especially for a guy who, I mean, didn't exactly knock my socks off when he came in last season. And I thought they had training wheels on his training wheels last year when he played. So he's it's going to be one of those situations where he's basically got to make 5 pretty good throws each game, right? He's not going to be asked to be, he's not going to be asked to be a tier 1 quarterback. He's going to ask to play at a tier 3 level, take care of the ball, make a couple good throws, and, use his legs effectively, which is something that we know he can do really well.
Yeah, exactly. We're not expecting him to come out and be Patrick Mahomes right away. You don't need to be in this system. And, right. Yeah, sure. But, the one nice thing you have is the talent around you, which I think you have some good weapons for you. The halfback room I have is tier 3 with Elijah Mitchell. You drafted Tyron Davis Price in the 3rd round. You have, Trey Sermon. Who knows if that'll work out? Jeff Wilson's in there. Kyle Juszczyk, I put him in the halfback position. He certainly is going to help you. He could also be considered a wide receiver because he's a fullback, but he does it all. And in the wide receiving room, I like a lot. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. Those are 3 incredible weapons to throw at. So when you add on Jawan Jennings, Ray McLeod, and like I said, Kyle Juszczyk, I have this as a tier 1 wide receiving room because I love what Deebo Samuel brings. I love what Brandon Ayuk brings. And again, I don't know how much running game Deebo Samuel is going to bring. It becomes a lot better than tier 3 if Deebo Samuel is in there, but I just don't know how much he's going to actually run with the football. So that's just one of those. I don't know exactly where to rank them there. So I put it at tier 3. But, I gave all the credit to Deebo Samuel for wide receiving room. So there you go. Tier 1 wide receiver, tier 3 halfback room.
Yeah, and it's a you said a tier what halfback room? Sorry,
tier 3.
Tier 3. Yeah, I mean, so like you said, it's one of those things where this team grades out as a tier 3 just because there's no star runners. But like, what is it? So 2019, they were the 2nd best rushing team in football. And then last season they were, they struggled a little bit with injuries in 2020, so things were skewed a little bit. But they still top 15 in the league. And then last year they finished 7th. So it's probably going to grade out as, they'll probably perform at a tier 2 or a tier 1 level running game, even if there's no stars in that group. So they're going to be fine. The juice is all everything, fullbacks forever. So he's maybe the best player in football. But in all seriousness, no, I do like him a lot. I think he does a lot of things really well for this team. And Shanahan, of course, uses him perfectly because Shanahan is just an excellent play designer. And so there was this interesting thing this offseason about Deebo Samuel too, right? Where he doesn't want to be in the run game that much. He doesn't want to be a running back. He wants to be a receiver. So does that change how they play call around him? Is he just going to, be the good soldier and kind of, do everything that he can do? I still think he's an excellent wide receiver. I still think Ayuk is an excellent number 2 wide receiver. And Kittle is obviously either the 1st or 2nd best tight end in the league when he's on the field. So there's still a lot of weapons really to like around here. It's just, how are they going to use them?
Yeah, I agree. And I trust Kyle Shanahan will figure out a good way. The offensive line is a concern for me. It is. And listen, Trent Williams had one of the best offensive lineman seasons of all time last year. So we got to get that out of the way. He's unbelievable. But offensive line is kind of a weak link position. And while I like what Mike McGlinchey does, I think that he's one of the 49ers fans hate him. I think he's fine. That's kind of, he's graded out fine. I have no real issue with him. But, from the interior, this is where the concern is. Where the center looks like it might be like Jake Brendel, who's going to be their center, who, only has 250 snaps over 4 years. So don't know if I love that. But who else is going to be? Donovan West, who is undrafted free agent. There's some concerns there for me. You also have for the guards, Aaron Banks, who, was a 2021 2nd rounder. Maybe he'll be able to perform well. I don't know. You also have Daniel Brunskill, who was, I thought that he was probably maybe he's maybe the best interior guy that I feel confident about, but still, had really good first couple of years, took a step back last year. I'm willing to say maybe he's closer to the 1st and 2nd year. We'll see how that works out. You also drafted someone in the 4th round. So you're patching up this interior offensive line massively here. While I love Trent Williams, it's still a tier 4 offensive line for me.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you throw Kittle in there as another blocker too, and he's excellent at it. But at the same time, so yeah, I mean, I have concerns with this group, like you said. I don't think it's an awesome interior offensive line whatsoever. There's Williams is obviously the best in the league, so that helps. But I guess the one thing that you could say is your sense of optimism is that maybe some of these guys get better, but at the same time, what's the best cure to a bad offensive line? It's zone running and a mobile quarterback. They have both of those right now. So you can kind of get away with having an okay offensive line or a bad offensive line when you can get those guys moving in a zone running scheme and when you can run with your quarterback. They do both of those things better than probably anybody in the league. So I'm willing to say that it's going to be, I don't know if it'll be like this team's not going to win games because their offensive line fails them. It's just not a strength whatsoever.
Yeah. So their offense I have as 18th in football. Their defense gets better for me though. Starting off with the coverage, they added Tre'Davious Ward, who was, I think, good. I think that's a good signing. You want to protect the corners, get good corners. That's smart football. You also have Emmanuel Mosley and DeQuiz Denard, who have both been solid for them as well. And then you have like Jason Verrett, who seems like one out of every 5 years stays healthy and plays awesome. So maybe you'll get that. They drafted Samuel Womack in the 5th round. And then when you add on, good safeties, I like Jimmy Ward, again, Talana Hufanga, and also George Odom. Don't know how much I'm going to rely on those guys, but whatever. They should patch together a fine number 2 safety situation there. And Fred Warner brings a lot to this coverage unit. So is it is it filled with high-end talent, kind of like you said? Not really, but they're consistent across the board. So it's tier 3 for me in the coverage room.
Yeah, and like you said, these linebackers cover really well, starting with Fred Warner. So it's it works out. They got to make it work. And I think there was a time where they had guys all over the field that were just awesome. They don't really have that, but I think all these guys, like you said, are just solid. They do their jobs, and then of course Fred Warner is the superstar of this group, so he stands out and is all over the field. I think it's still going to be a pretty good pass defense.
Yeah, and when you add on what Fred Warner can do in the running game, that helps their run defense be tier 3. It was the best tier 3, but still is tier 3. And part of that is, Eric Armstead. And, you talk about Javon Kinlaw. Will he take a step forward? He hasn't shown much to me so far in his NFL career. But then, the other linebackers, Dre Greenlaw, also very good. Aziz Al-Shair. Sorry about that. Aziz, pronounce your name. But, good. 3 good linebackers there for the 49ers. And then for the edge rushers, Nick Bosa, who was awesome. And then you also drafted Drake Jackson, who I really liked out of the draft in the 2nd round, with Samson Ibakam and Charles Omenihu there. Man, a lot of tough names here. Doing my best. But tier 3 run defense, tier 1 pass rush, because I like what Armstead could do on the inside, like Nick Bosa, and I think Drake Jackson should be a guy who can play right away. On top of a tier 2 kicker for me, their defense, 9th in football. Total, I have them at 11.21 wins, which is 13th in football, 6th in the NFC.
All right, so fringe playoff team here. I think I have it in the same spot. I think I'll have them probably in the wild card spot too. Yeah, I mean, I like this group overall, and I know defensive tackles take a little bit longer. It's been 2 years now we've been waiting on Kinlaw. I liked him a lot in the draft. If he can get going, all of a sudden, this might be one of the best front sevens in the league, because that's basically the one spot where you're like, you got to get stops up the middle. Everyone else is at least good to solid. And I really like these defensive ends, like you're saying, with Jackson, and Nick Bosa obviously is a, constant defensive player of the year candidate. So all that put together, really good stuff. And, maybe if Kinlaw gets going, then it's, dangerous.
Yeah, and the Kinlaw thing too really is like, people kind of will say, "Oh man, I bet the Bills wish to have Justin Jefferson now on a cheap deal instead of having to pay Stephon Diggs all this money for and he's not as good as Jefferson." It's like, okay, probably, but like the flip side is the Javon Kinlaw thing, right? You get rid of DeForest Buckner, get Kinlaw. Hasn't quite worked out as well for 49ers.
Yeah. I mean, they took a chance with it, and so far it hasn't worked. We'll see if he can get it going.
Yeah, but as a whole, I mean, listen, some 49ers fans might say, "Oh, you're too low. They nearly went to the Super Bowl last year." I had the 49ers as, winning more games than they won last year. They won 10 games last year. I have them winning 11.22, which is kind of the way the 49ers are built in a way, right? It's you get to the playoffs, and in the playoffs, you have teams who are good at throwing the ball and stopping the pass, and then your team that's built on running the football, and you can stop the pass as well. That's kind of a way that you can sort of find ways to get these upsets. That's how you were able to upset the Dallas in particular. They just were not built to stop a team like the 49ers.
Yeah, and of course, as we said at the top when talking about the starting to the head coach and quarterback, if you get tier 2, tier 3 quarterback play out of your guy, you're probably going to hit 11 wins. If he plays tier 4, tier 5, you might hit a little bit lower. And if he shows up to be, everything you wanted out of that 3rd pick and traded up for, then you're a Super Bowl contender. So we'll see. It's,
right.
That's basically kind of the wait and see mode with that. But yeah, I mean, this is a team that over the last 4 or 5 years, when they're healthy, they're usually in the conversation and solid.
Yeah. So you talked about Super Bowl contenders. Let's talk about the team that won the Super Bowl last year. Your number 1 team and my number 1 team in this division. Why do you have the Rams winning the division?
Still just an overall really complete team that I like. I think that,
Mhm.
they're, I rated Cooper Cup as the number one receiver in our weapons draft. I think
Mhm.
I rated him as the number one weapon. I picked him first. I still think he's in that conversation. Stafford proved the doubters wrong. I think he had some stumbles towards the end of the year where people were saying he was a little banged up towards the end of the season. He
Mhm.
proved to be fine in the playoffs, looked awesome, won a Super Bowl. He's a tier two, maybe fringe tier one quarterback in my book, and you're looking across this roster. So you do lose Odell Beckham. I'm expecting a huge bounce back season from Allen Robinson now that he's not, in you know, the offensive abyss that is Chicago. Van Jefferson's a
Mhm.
guy who, he hasn't graded out really well, but I still kind of like him overall. And I think he's going to be fine. Tyler Higbee is a good tight end. I think this running game should be better with Cam Akers fully healthy for a season. Offensive line's really good. Defensive line's really good. Maybe
Mhm.
has the best defensive player in football. Secondary, there's some questions, but you have debatably the best cornerback in football, which helps a
Uh-huh.
whole lot with setting the tone for that team. Lot to like about this Rams team. They're good at every if you look at basically the key positions in football, they're good at all of them. They're good at all those key positions, and that's why they're a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah. I have one clear concern with the Rams roster, and we'll get into that in a second. Although one thing, you said Matt Stafford is a fringe tier one quarterback. I just disagree. I don't think he's a fringe tier one quarterback for Matt Stafford. I had him at 12th in my rankings, which gives him tier three ranking, which is like he should be tier two. Tier two feels right for him. But like I don't. I mean, when you compare him to like a Tom Brady or like a Patrick Mahomes, he isn't that. But I would say he played like that in the playoffs. And that's kind of the question with Stafford. Is he just someone who, when the playoffs happen, he's going to play awesome? Or was that just he happened to play well in that playoffs? We really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think he can get hot and play at that level. I mean, there's
hmm
something. So, did you see the whole Mike Sando thing that everyone was up in arms about with Lamar?
Was that the thing where he said, like, if Lamar won 12 straight MVPs, he still wouldn't have him as a tier one?
Well, a defensive coordinator said that where they basically broke it into tiers, and I think like so personally, I was looking through the list and all that. Like people would put Justin Herbert in tier one.
hmm
And I personally wouldn't put Justin Herbert in tier one. I would say Stafford's closer to it right now than Herbert. I think they're all kind of in the same conversation where
hmm
he's one of those guys too, where if he gets hot, he has the throwing ability to make all the throws that all those other guys can. It just kind of, in spurts, I definitely think he can be that level.
Well, see, all I care about with quarterbacks is how much value do you bring to your football team. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if it's Lamar Jackson or if it's Tom Brady. Whatever you're doing, how much value do you bring to your football team? And Matt Stafford consistently brings slightly above average value to his football team. That's consistently where he's ranked. He's ranked, I think, around 13th in passer rating over the course of his career, like comparative to the rest. Like on average, he's like around 13th, and he's around like I think it's 14th in PFF grade, or maybe I had that backwards, but it's 13th and 14th for those two stats. And that's kind of where he's been at for most of his career. Now, maybe that's Detroit. I don't know. But like Matt Stafford is not, he has never been considered a top five quarterback. I also think that he's better than that. I think he's better than, the 14th best quarterback throughout the course of his career. But I think that some of the Matt Stafford hype, I think has gotten a little out of control.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't personally put him in the top five or anything.
hmm
He's not Mahomes, Brady. You go through those list of guys, Rodgers. He's not those guys, but I mean,
hmm
this is a guy who had 4,800 yards and 41 touchdowns last season. I mean,
Sure.
he did. I mean, outside of like a 3 week stretch where it's like he couldn't stop giving the ball to the other team, he
hmm
did everything the Rams wanted him to do and more. And
But can't you
then,
say that like every single season Matt Stafford has ever existed? That if you ignore the bad, he's been incredible.
yeah, I guess, but at the same
hmm
time, it worked out for them. So,
Well, sure, sure,
yeah.
and that's kind of my main point. Is like, is that who he is in the big? Like, he's someone who is a streaky player, and I guess that's better than having someone who's consistently like good. Like maybe the benefit of a Stafford compared to like a Kirk Cousins, who I would put on the same like tier two, is that Stafford's someone who can get hot and that can help out more in the postseason. All my point is like we can't forget that the bad stuff also happened, and even in the playoffs, he had like that 49ers, was Jaquiski Tart, who just dropped that wide open intercept. Like if that happens, maybe the Rams still win, but it's like that was a backbreaking throw that he just happened to not get burned on.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I still like sure they could both be tier 2, but I still feel like there's a gap between. I feel like Stafford is closer to the tier 1 guys than like the Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins are close to him. If that makes
Interesting.
sense.
See, I don't think I fully. I would maybe agree with Prescott, but I think like I think I would say Cousins and him to me feel like the same.
I would say I personally think like Cousins and Prescott are kind of the same, but Cousins was awesome last year, so I mean it's it's fine.
Yeah, whatever. It's an interesting discussion. It's worth having, but either way, I think we all like Stafford. The question is, should he be clearly tier 2 or high end tier 2? So that's the main question here. And part of why I think Stafford did look very good last year was because Sean McVay is really good. Sean McVay, who I believe was your highest rated head coach last year, if I remember correctly.
I picked him up first. Yeah.
Yeah. I had him at 5. So we both are big fans of Sean McVay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, the thing is like you could say like he doesn't really adjust his offense very much. That's like the one criticism. But I think, not only does he coach well, I think one of the things he needs to start getting more credit for is how he evaluates talent to bring into the team. And that's what the Rams do as a front office too. And B, how he evaluates coaching talent to bring into the team. Because you start looking at all these guys who are, across the league, they're Sean McVay guys. You're looking at Brandon Staley, Zach Taylor, Kevin O'Connell. You're going through the list of guys. The Packers, LaFleur is a kind of McVay-ish guy too, isn't he? So you just start going through the list. These are all kind of McVay guys. And not only is I think he a really, really a great coach, obviously. I rated him number 1, but he's picking great coaches put around him to help this team out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's something that he's been incredible at. And I think it all comes back to that main style of like, this is a Mike McDaniel quote, which to me, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, they're the same person. They're both the same person. And I feel like, McDaniel is obviously from the Shanahan tree, but what he said about how it was a question about why do you pitch it backwards just to run up the middle? Most teams only do that off to the side. And his response was because most teams do it off to the side. We want to do things that are, against the grain intentionally, do things that other teams aren't doing. That'll give us a half-second head start. I think that's why so many, and McVay has sort of the same mindset. And that's why so many of these coaches have had some success there. Also, let's move on to the weapons now. Don't love this running back room. It is tier 5 for me. Cam Akers, Darnell Henderson. They drafted Kyron Williams in the 5th round. But again, the McVay system should be able to allow them to get some stuff going. And Akers didn't look great coming back from the injury, but he essentially just walked off an ACL injury, right? So I don't know, maybe we need more time. The weapons though, wide receiving weapons, I really like. I have it as tier 2. Love Cooper Kupp, not as much as you do, but no one loves Cooper Kupp more than you do. I'm not sure if his family likes Cooper Kupp as much as you do. But very good. You also have, Allen Robinson, who I'm interested. There's a question mark there. Is he going to be back to former Allen Robinson? Part of me feels like, that situation was so bad for him. He'll play well. That's what I think will happen. But it's also like Allen Robinson has never been in a good situation and he's always played well. So why was this one the one that he couldn't get it done with? I don't know. But you do have some depth here. Van Jefferson, and then you have Ben Skowronek, the worst player in football. Also, Tutu Atwell, the smallest player in football. And then for the tight ends, Tyler Higbee, who I like. And then you have Kendall Blanton, who I was convinced would be the Super Bowl hero until he got hurt. So then it was Bryson Hopkins, who was the Super Bowl hero, weirdly enough. So tier 2 wide receiving room for me.
I mean, yeah, personally, I'd put this one, but I do sound a little biased towards it. But yeah, I mean, overall, I also wouldn't be surprised if by week 8, Odell Beckham is on this roster too, on this depth chart. If he's healthy.
It's possible. And listen, if that happens, I might put him up to tier 1.
Yeah. And Tutu Atwell, I think, is a guy who can be electric and get better. And I really like this tight end group. I think, there's 3 solid guys there, I think, overall. And yeah, so I think overall I like this group. I think there's at least 2 guys I'm convinced are going to be good wide receiver wise. I think the other 2 can continue to get better. And if they add Odell Beckham back in the middle of the season once he's healthy, all of a sudden that's a great wide receiver room. So I feel pretty good about that. I've been banking on this Cam Akers thing for a while now. I've been hoping he keeps getting better. He got hurt. That derailed him after a solid rookie season. Hopefully he's, if he's fully healthy this season, I think he'll hit the ground running. Darrell Henderson's a fine backup. Kyron Williams is kind of fun. At Notre Dame, he would either get like 70 yards or like -7 yards. So he's kind of one of those guys, and we'll see how it works in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, I think overall you go through this and there's just a bunch of guys that, I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's a game that's like a Van Jefferson game where he has 8 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. And all of a sudden the story of the game is Van Jefferson kills the defense. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a game where like Tutu Atwell has a punt return for a touchdown that swings the game or something like that. So I just look and, I go through 4 guys on their receivers, a couple guys on their running backs, a couple tight ends that all I feel like can make plays.
Yeah. The offensive line I don't love. Rob Havenstein, I like a lot. I think losing Andrew Whitworth, like there's no other way to put it. It's going to hurt. I don't care how good your backup is. That being said, they got a good backup. Joseph Noteboom played very well in his absence. The question, of course, is, is that too small of a sample size? They paid him, so they hope not. They feel confident with him. Brian Allen, a solid center on top of it. And then the guards, David Edwards, who had also put in the solid conversation. And then looks like Logan Brust, a 2021 third rounder, is going to be the other guards. So maybe a little question marks there, little question marks of Noteboom. So it's a tier 3 offensive line for me. But there's again, one of those where I could see it being tier 2 or even tier 1 by the end of the season.
Yeah, there's definitely upside here. I think Noteboom will be good. Like you said, there's no Andrew Whitworth, but I think he'll be good. And I just think going through this list, I think this is a good group, and it's a quick passing offense too. Obviously, you take your deep shots when you notice blitzes and when Kupp can get downfield, but they're not going to set this group up to fail, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. So I have them as the 14th rated offense. Their defense is interesting. I have one major concern about this defense, and that is cornerback depth. I think that's a fair concern to have because I like their safeties of Jordan Fuller, Taylor Rapp, Nick Scott. Yeah, it's fine. They 1, 2, 3 safeties feels like they'll all do the role effectively. We all know about Jalen Ramsey and what he can do. I think he's the best corner in football. But then it looks like the other corners right now are Davis Long might end up being the number 2 corner. And you have Troy Hill in the slot, and it's like that's concerning to me. Like I think losing Darius Williams is something that maybe isn't getting talked about as much as it should. That's tough for a defense, especially their defense played a lot of cover 3 last year, which means you have to have both your safeties being able to play well. Darius Williams didn't exactly thrive in that role, but he played all right, and losing him is going to that's going to hurt. And I think that's a very fair concern to have. I have it as a tier 3 coverage unit, but it is 21st, which is the last tier 3 coverage unit for me. And I think that's something that I could see derailing this entire season. I think that they should have probably gotten at least another guy in the room who could potentially be a good number 2.
Yeah, so I go through this and it's like, Troy Hill was good in 2020, good in 2019, pretty average last season. So I think he kind of regresses back to his mean and is going to be pretty good in the slot next season.
Sure.
But that number 2 outside spot is concerning. So we'll see how that works out. We'll see how, if it is David Long, how he performs. If it's one of those other guys, we'll see. The bright side is that half of your field is not going to be thrown at all that much. Maybe there's ways you can scheme it so that, you can add more help to that side. We'll see how it goes. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, that is a concern. But if your concern for the Rams is how's the number 2 quarterback, then I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, but I mean that's something that can derail you. That's something that you have to pay attention to. But you're right. As long as there are ways you can kind of scheme that away, and especially when you have this great front 7. Added Bobby Wagner, who should be awesome, and you have Ernest Jones, who's good. So it's like they've never really valued linebackers, but like, okay, you have Bobby Wagner now. I'm so fascinated in how that's going to work with the Rams because they've never valued linebackers in the Sean McVay era. So maybe it's just, hey, if you can get Bobby Wagner, value that linebacker, perhaps. That would make sense to me. Obviously, Aaron Donald, the best player in the world. who plays defensive tackle for them on the inside. You also have Greg Gaines, who was, kind of like, this is how the Rams have been able to be successful, right? Guys like Greg Gaines and A'Shaun Robinson, who have just come in and played well, that they didn't have to spend a bunch of resources to go out and get. They're paying Leonard Floyd a lot, but I like Leonard Floyd. High motor player on top of being able to, still have some success. Is he probably overpaid for his value? Yeah, probably, but he's still really good. And then you have, the edge rush depth might be another issue, perhaps. Justin Hollins looks like he's going to be the other guy. So maybe you could use some other depth there, but it's the best pass rush in football because it has Aaron Donald for me. Tier 1 there. Tier 1 run defense because it has Aaron Donald and also have Bobby Wagner. So you're doing good there. Defense I have as the 6th best in football, even despite a tier 3 coverage rank.
Yeah. Getting Bobby Wagner in this group's unfair. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know how many more good seasons he's going to have, but I think he's going to have an awesome season with this front seven. I think he should thrive. Like you said, Floyd is fine, but when you're going with, Donald and A'Shaun Robinson, you're going to look pretty good as a pass rusher, I think, because those guys take a lot of attention. And so he gets the job done. And then obviously the superstar there is Aaron Donald. You might have added the best linebacker of the last 5 or 6 years to the best defensive tackle. So having that duo, I think, just makes a huge difference. This is a really good front seven.
Yeah, no, it's absurd. Again, Aaron Donald, there's no defensive lineman who has the value that Aaron Donald does. There's no defensive lineman who comes close to the value that Aaron Donald has. Like, I don't think there's any. I'm not even sure if I would trade Aaron Donald for like the next 2 best defensive linemen. Like, he has that much value.
Would you trade him for Aaron Rodgers?
Well, yeah, I'd trade him for Aaron Rodgers, sure.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, it would have to blow you away, I think, because he's that special. I mean, everything this defense does elite. I mean, we saw what this Brandon Staley defense did last season without Aaron Donald. It wasn't pretty. And then we've seen it this, it makes you can get away with a lot of different things. And that's part of why that coverage shell thing that like the Vic Fangios have kind of started, and that's kind of becoming the trendy thing in football. The Rams are really good at it because they can sit in a lot of coverages because they got this front 3, especially, with one of them potentially the defensive player of the year again. You got this front 3 that can make things happen.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Also, Matt Gay I have as a tier 1 kicker, which is just, it's not right. It's wrong. How does that happen? That's just cruel to me. Stupid Matt Gay is a tier 1 kicker. I had to watch Matt Gay kick a field goal to end the Buccaneers season live in person last year, Kyle.
It's unbelievable. You have the weirdest like kicker history. Like the Chargers and like Minnesota Vikings have like jokes about kickers, but the Buccaneers just have this weird history with kickers that anytime they leave Tampa, which, I would think would be a pretty favorable place to kick.
Right.
They thrive everywhere else.
Yeah. It's unfair. Do not like it. It's the curse of Matt Bryant. We let Matt Bryant go. Never should have let that happen. Should have let him play as long as he wanted to in here. That's what happened. So the Rams I have as the 4th best team in football with 12.27 wins, 3rd in the NFC. And again, Rams fans saying, "Oh, why are we only 4 if we won the Super Bowl?" I have you winning more games than you did in the regular season last year. Okay, so like I think you got better by slightly better, but I do have concerns about losing Darius Williams. I think that'll hurt, and that's the one thing that if they can patch that up, they could repeat. But if they can't, against a team like Tampa Bay, who has Julio Jones as the number 4 receiver, like that could end up being an issue.
Yeah, for reference, because we did it like feels like a year ago now. Where'd you have the Packers ranked overall?
What I had them? I'm trying to. I'll pull it up.
Okay.
Yeah, but I had them higher than the Rams. So the Packers I had as number 2 in the conference, just behind the number 1 team. They had 14.35 wins. So I have them almost or a little bit over 2 full wins ahead of the Rams.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, but I think that there's different questions for both teams. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it breaks down for both of those teams this season. I wouldn't be surprised if this still, this is going to be an awesome team. I can't wait to see their Super Bowl title defense. I think this defense is going to be, very good. And if this running game gets going, I think that this could be an elite offense too.
True or false? The Rams can win a Super Bowl if Matt Stafford does not play incredible in the postseason.
Um, I'd probably say false, but I just
Mm-hmm.
think that's the state of football now.
Uh-huh. Well, is
Yeah,
that a concern then? That, you're because last year they paid Matt Stafford $20 million, right? You got him in the last, they traded, so the Lions were, taking part of that salary. Now they're paying him $40 million. Now they're losing guys like Darius Williams. Is it a concern now that he's probably gonna have to carry the same amount of the load that he carried last year, which was, a lot more than we've seen him do consistently?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation because I was thinking about this the other day as we talked. These quarterback ratings have kind of gone around the internet, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like because the conversation was always with guys like Matt Stafford last year, although he played lights out. Same with like Nick Foles a few years ago, he played lights out. With a
Mm-hmm.
guy like Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, as he went back into the past,
Mm-hmm.
you could win Super Bowl with that level of quarterback.
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking, is it still possible to win Super Bowls with those level of quarterbacks without your roster being like inch perfect? And it feels like the answer is probably no, right?
Yeah, I think I mean possible, I would say yes, right? Like the 49ers could have managed to win one of Jimmy Garoppolo if things bounced differently. And I guess the one thing I would also say is like if your quarterback's getting paid nothing, that seems to be the other way you can do it. Like,
Yeah.
Jared Goff on his rookie deal got to the Super Bowl. So like I think if you're getting paid nothing or if you're getting paid or if you're great, that tends to be the other way. I think the other way I would say it is if it's like last year where maybe you don't have a superstar quarterback, but your quarterback plays like a superstar in the playoffs. To me, those are the three clear ways. There's always going to be exceptions, such as like Peyton Manning's Broncos, but that was unintentional. They didn't mean to have that happen. Peyton Manning happened to suck that year, and they still won the Super. Like that, just sometimes those will work out. But
Yeah.
I think that if you simulate 100 seasons, it in 2022, it feels like in most of those seasons, like 97, it's going to be one of those three scenarios of quarterback on a cheap deal, star quarterback, or quarterback who played like a star in the playoffs.
Yeah. It'll definitely be interesting. So like I guess the long way of answering your question is like I said, I haven't gone through it all yet. Like I don't know if I'm gonna pick the Rams to make the Super Bowl again.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple other good teams in the NFC which will make it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I wouldn't be shocked if the Rams are back in the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be, it wouldn't be surprising to me. I think I think that's a very realistic scenario.
Sure. And listen, I have them as the fourth team in football, right? So like I'm very much high on them as well. I think they're very good. I just think that, we have to nitpick the great teams. And I think there's ways you can nitpick this team.
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. But I think there's ways to nitpick all of these teams too, right? There's ways to
Certainly.
nitpick, if going back to Green Bay, I think you had it at the last Super Bowl. When's the time without a top 15 wide receiver room has a team won a Super Bowl? It's been forever, right?
It's been it hasn't happened in the past 11 years. I'm not sure if it's happened before that, but I know in the past 11 years, there's never been an instance of a bottom half of the league wide receiving core making the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's things to nitpick about all these teams. I am concerned about that, coverage unit, but I do think, I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys kind of works out and they're fine too. So we'll see how it breaks down for this team. This question is making me laugh where it says live in the corner. Hey, Kruger, is this really live?
Yeah, I think we've seen this a couple times where people don't believe that we're actually doing this live.
Well, it's just like a recorded version of us. And
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
This is all off the cuff, man. This isn't scripted at all.
Yeah, if we were doing this scripted, I think we'd do a lot better job, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We could strive for perfection, but we're giving you mediocre because we care about you. And we want to interact with you too. So that helps.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, but again, Rams should be a very interesting team. And again, it's so fascinating with like the three teams in this conference of the Rams, Buccaneers, and Packers just seem to have this rock, paper, scissors thing going, right? Where it's like the Packers beat the Rams beat the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers beat the Packers. So it's like it kind of just feels like whatever matchups go their way could be to how it's decided who wins the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it really does feel that way, and I think they all play each other again this year too, right?
Yeah, because they all won their division last year when the Buccaneers beat the year before.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you're just going to look at it and say, okay, we'll see how these, week 3, Green Bay and Tampa, and then week 9, they play Los Angeles, and I think Los Angeles and Green Bay somewhere in there too. we're going to see how these teams shake up. It feels like it's a 3-horse race, and I wouldn't be surprised if either of those 3 teams end up in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I really wouldn't either. So, yep, that is the NFC West. Kyle, next week, we will round out the NFC, talking about the NFC South. My team, the Buccaneers. Should be a fun podcast.
Different division, different looking division. For the first time in quite a while, you don't have Matt Ryan and Drew Brees, going against you. How does that feel?
Great. I mean, Kyle, it was 2-3 years ago that it was Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Cam Newton, and Jameis Winston in the division. I am very happy that this is now the state of affairs.
Yeah, and that's true. It's sort of flipped for you here.
Yeah.
That's funny. But I mean, how long has it actually been since those two weren't in the division? Well over a decade.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously last year Drew Brees wasn't there, but before that, I mean, we're significantly over a decade. It's been and we had a decade of Cam Newton as well. So that was like a 10-year stretch with those 3 guys in the division, and then let's see if Josh McCown has something. Mike Glennon, maybe he can figure it out.
Yeah, the Buccaneers are the stable franchise now. Maybe once again, the lesson for everybody: every team should try and sign Tom Brady.
Yeah, again, that's the whole. There's a revisionist history with Tom Brady. Everyone says, "Oh yeah, you got Tom Brady." People didn't want Tom Brady. The Buccaneers were like, "We will take any quarterback who can throw a decent football," and it's worked out well for us.
Yeah. There was a lot of teams that are like, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Well, I think the report is only the Buccaneers and Chargers actually gave him a contract offer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the whole thing was that because remember the shop thing where he's like, oh, you're sticking with that MFR?
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure the report was that was about Tannehill or something, wasn't it?
I don't know if it's ever been confirmed. I thought some people were speculating Jimmy Garoppolo might have been the guy, because I know they were considered, the 49ers famously chose Jimmy Garoppolo over Tom Brady, which in hindsight might have been a mistake.
Yeah, hindsight. I'm sure Tennessee would have loved him last year too.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams would have liked Tom Brady. We'll talk all about Tom Brady and the rest of the Buccaneers and the rest of the NFC South next year. Before we do that, Kyle, let them know where they can find us on Twitter and all that good stuff before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Grondin. Make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That's at On the Sideline JK on Twitter.
Yes, and of course we will be back. If you're wondering about the schedule, we will be back weekly now on Wednesdays. That's how it works. If you like audio only podcasts, we have the audio only file on the Sideline podcast. You search that, and that's how you can get it. And Kyle, how many days until football are we?
September 8th is 43 days away. We are
okay
in the, I can smell it from here. I can see 43 days into the future and what's going to happen.
Okay, a week from tomorrow, we got the Hall of Fame game. Football is back.
Oh yeah, I forgot the Hall of Fame game happens.
Never forget the Hall of Fame game. But the Hall of Fame game is actually somewhat interesting now because they changed it to where you have since they got rid of a preseason game, teams will actually play their starters at some point during the Hall of Fame game. It used to be the Hall of Fame game is just backups altogether. At least we'll get some starters here.
Yeah, there you go. I don't watch a lot of preseason, but I might tune in a little bit.
Yeah, listen, I love preseason. I get good content out of it because no one wants to watch the preseason, but to watch my film studies of the preseason, just watch it in 10 minutes. It's great for me.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm. So looking forward to it though. We're getting close. Got to start looking at my NFL Sunday ticket packages and get ready to go.
Yeah, all that good stuff. Again, thank you to everybody for watching or listening. We do appreciate it. And until next week, see you later, alligator.
Peace.